Africa. Just the word stirs the soul, excites the imagination. For Denice and I, being in South Africa is the realization of a childhood dream. We came here for the same reason 9 out of 10 tourists visit, to experience the incredible wildlife, the spectacular scenery.
From deserts to jungles and everything in between, South Africa's biodiversity is truly amazing for a nation its size. Publicists call it a world in one country, and since we've been traveling and filming here, we've discovered it's no exaggeration.
Only a day after arriving in Johannesburg, the call of the wild and the lure of adventure sent us west to the Thirstlands. In this country that's nearly twice the size of Texas, it's an 800-mile journey to experience spring in the Makwaland and the lions of the Kalahari. But our first destination is Ograbi's Falls National Park. At the main headquarters, you can reserve accommodations, get information, shop for souvenirs, and even have breakfast. The crisp, chill air of a semi-desert morning is invigorating, and the view can be tantalizing. But you need to keep an eye on your plate, because waiting in the wings, well, is a very impatient cleanup crew. The pale-winged starling and the Cape white-eye consider any unattended place setting fair pickings. Meanwhile, other residents dine on more local fare. As an appetizer, these chakma baboons have selected a kind of pick-your-own root vegetable, while leafy greens are on the menu for the park's most common mammal, the dassie or hyrax, a little hoofed critter that climbs. Now, this vervet monkey snacks on a tasty protein dish while ridding a friend of pesky fleas and ticks. But enough about breakfast. Ograbi's encompasses 220,000 acres of rock and wilderness. Exploring this vast landscape, we imagine ourselves walking in the footsteps of the extinct Khoikhoi people, who inspired the name which has endured, Ograbi's. It means the place of great noise. For the Khoi, the site held sacred significance, and today's visitors still stand in awe as one of the world's 6 greatest waterfalls plunges over 200 feet into an ancient granite gorge. Legend claims that beneath these thundering falls lie a fortune in diamonds, though there are few that would risk the danger to retrieve them. But after this raging fury, we see the river's more tranquil power, A spectacular 11-mile chasm was created by the rushing water on its timeless journey to the Atlantic. The mighty Orange River carries almost a quarter of all the water in South Africa's entire river system. To follow its total length would be a 1,200-mile voyage. Throughout time, this precious liquid has been one of the major determining factors in the lives of the South African people. Here we are reminded that nothing is as soft and yielding as water. It has the capacity to produce such change. A powerful lesson to take away. Well, next, we're heading towards the coast to catch an impressive but fleeting display of nature's finery.
The northwest corner of South Africa is a semi-desert area known as Namakwaland. For most of the year, the land is parched and barren. But when the winter rains and the spring temperatures are perfect, the land explodes into one of the greatest floral spectacles on Earth.
These vast blankets of color are primarily woven with a phenomenal variety of daisies, each one a delicate contradiction to their harsh and uncompromising environment. Others seem more obviously adapted for searing temperatures and only 3 to 6 inches of rain. But miraculously, Namakwaland blooms with one of the greatest varieties of plants on Earth. And the best time to come and see this magical transformation is in South Africa's springtime. From about mid-August through mid-September, you can join the locals and walk amid carpets of color. This area is named for the nomadic Nama herdsmen that can still be seen here tending their flocks. Well, life on the move required a portable home, so for quick and easy transport, huts like these were made of light poles covered by sedge mats. At Namastad, travelers today can get a unique taste of traditional Nama culture by spending the night in one of these cozy yet well-ventilated shelters. The breeze constantly blows through, the original air conditioning. Well, staying here stimulates the imagination to dream of another, much different way of life, where nearby at the Huhap Nature Reserve, visitors can discover the story behind the Namakwaland scenery and take a walk through the wildflower garden. But the reserve protects over 37,000 acres. So if you want to cover more ground, get geared up and settle into a 2-seater microlight with an enthusiastic pilot like Yanni de Kock.
Are you online?
Yes?
Let's take wing for a bird's eye view of the painted landscape. Yanni would love to spend every beautiful, calm morning in the sky, and it's easy to understand why. In this simple open aircraft, you get an exhilarating sense of flying that being inside a plane can never give. As the wind whips over you and the landscape rushes beneath you, the experience is not only of seeing like a bird, but feeling like one. The flower mosaic here is constantly changing, not just with each new vista, but with each spring. Every year is different. Namakwaland has been celebrated as a garden of the gods, and from this vantage point, it seems a particularly fitting title. From here, our journey takes us to the southern edge of one of the world's largest expanses of sand, the Kalahari, where the lion reigns supreme. Most of us have seen lions in a zoo, but nothing compares to the thrill of getting close up to the king of beasts in the wild. Even here, however, the lions are enclosed, but their enclosure is one of the world's largest park systems and represents Southern Africa's first international peace park. This exciting new alliance enables animals like the hartebeest to migrate freely. Perched high atop the Kalahari dunes, the hunter can look down upon the hunted, which congregate in the dry riverbeds. While springbok are the most numerous species in the park, they're not often on the lion's meal ticket. This doesn't mean their life is easy, but these graceful gazelles are well adapted for whatever else the Kalahari can dish out. And when temperatures soar, the ground becomes a furnace. Knowing when to get out of the heat is essential. In this great thirst land, shade is like water for predator and prey. But as cheetah habitats go, this hostile environment is as near perfect as possible. One main reason, those large herds of springbok are their most important food. For now, though, they're not feeling threatened, but rather being threatening to each other. The springbok here are bigger than most, so the Kalahari obviously agrees with them too. And while the plants may look dry and sparse, they do provide a surprisingly reliable and nutritious diet. These dainty herbivores bulk up by browsing and grazing, adapting to whatever food is available. While plants eaten by some become a home for others, this isn't the nest of one large bird, but rather super-insulated living quarters for up to 300 small birds, aptly named sociable weavers. Inside, each pair have their own separate condo. Although related to common sparrows, they're much more fascinating. Now, a thatched roof isn't just for the birds. Humans have adapted the weaver's style and ingenuity to insulate buildings throughout the parks, and even in other parts of the world. Foraging nearby is one of the Kalahari's smaller carnivores, the yellow mongoose. Not interested in sharing food with others, this loner often digs on its own for a dinner of mice or insects. The bat-eared fox is more gregarious, yet has a similar diet and excavation strategy, but they have the added benefit of radar dishes for ears. With these, they can actually hear beetle larvae stirring inches below the ground. But it's many pairs of eyes that keep ground squirrels from becoming an easy meal. Since they're active during the day and live in open habitat, this is their only line of defense against birds of prey, their major predators. Unfortunately for the squirrels, but great for birders, the park is considered one of the best places in South Africa to see raptors. There are many other beautiful birds here, like the crimson bobo, but the main attraction will always be the big predators, and Kalahari lions are unique among their kind. Spending the morning with them, watching and anticipating the activities found around a waterhole, is the essence of what Africa is all about. An impressive visitor is the park's namesake, the gemsbok, also the favorite antelope prey of the lion. Although renowned for their laziness, in the Kalahari, every animal must be constantly poised for survival, and each opponent knows the other is there. Research shows that these wildcats kill more prey than any other lions in Africa. The gemsbok are wary, but thirsty. Chauvinist to the end, males allow the females to do most of the hunting. Finally, feeling safe enough, they take a chance. Although these desert dwellers can go long periods without water, another extremely important adaptation here is conserving energy, and lions seem to set the standard in that department. The park's artificial boreholes also provide a life-sustaining water supply for thousands of birds. Coming in to drink, these weaver birds can face danger from the ground and the air. So if you look carefully, you'll notice that only a few stop to sip, while most provide a flurry of diversionary activity. This lord of the dry land is a smaller yet stronger version of its savanna colleagues, and just this movement makes the gemsbok take flight. This is untamed Africa, where every day a struggle for survival plays out. In the flush of a desert sunset, the weaver birds return to relative warmth and safety. They are a part of the last essentially intact ecosystem on the continent. Kalahari gemsbok may not be as famous as many other African parks, but it is one of the greatest. In this timeless solitude, you can be alone with the alone. Leaving the arid Northwest now, we're traveling cross-country to one of the world's most famous national parks, Kruger, We'll also be pampered in private reserves like Ulusaba and Chikudu. But first, a stop at Sidwala. After the desert's starkness, the lush greenery outside our lodge window looks refreshing. And even in winter, so does the pool. The grand entrance is a beautiful creation of woven and beaded handwork that could only be seen in Africa. A customary barricade of branches decorated with skulls show the ancestors that their people are doing well. This passage leads to Sidwala's living museum, where the traditional life in a Zulu kraal or village is recreated. The beehive huts are made of tightly woven reeds and grasses, each with their own design. The young people who work here are a multi-talented group who are building the village, creating the African decor, as well as demonstrating age-old activities. In between work, there might have been time for the shepherd's game, something similar to checkers. While producing the tools of the hunt with precision and skill was a most important task. Certainly one that future marksmen would have in their blood long before they learned the technique. In traditional African society, there is a practical division of labor. Historically, as in most world cultures, women were in charge of the domestic life of the tribe. Collecting water often involved walking great distances. Conducting the usual daily tasks was also a time for socializing. A unique means of communication among the Zulu people is through beadwork. Colors represent words, and red conveys passion or anger. Well, unique dexterity is required for some work, like braiding rope for decoration. Customs, beliefs, and traditions of the Zulu are an important part of South Africa's rich cultural heritage, and they make up the largest single group in this rainbow nation. A sacrificial goat roams the village as the men and women begin a ceremonial demonstration of dancing and singing. The most powerful expressions of tribal culture is the dance. Their stirring rhythms echo the ancient heartbeat of the African spirit. This dance might have been performed as a way for the tribe's warriors to prepare psychologically for fighting, or perhaps to teach future warriors the songs and style of movements. Today, the beat of the drum seems to have beckoned the rain. This actually happened. Just as they had finished, the storm began. Sidwala is nestled beneath an indigenous rainforest, where afternoon thunderstorms are the norm during the summer months of November to March. This area receives some of the highest rainfall in the country, which is a welcome relief from the dust and heat of the day. The Zulu traditionally believe that the creator of the world is Nkulunkulu, but it's his daughter who is considered more important in day-to-day life, for she controls the rain. It's the end of August now, so we must be off to our next destination before the skies open and the rainy season begins there. But we'll be keeping our head in the clouds in more ways than one. Perched high atop an 800-foot African kopje is Ulusaba's exclusive rock lodge, a world of elegance above the wilderness. Here you can learn the ways of wildlife while sitting in the lap of luxury. And from every location there are spectacular views of this private game reserve bordering Kruger National Park. As great as things are from up here, though, the best place to be is on the Land Rover, heading out in search of wildlife. With a highly skilled tracker and ranger along, all you have to do is sit back and enjoy. Our first sighting is a male waterbuck, a good start. But from the open vehicle, it's an even bigger thrill when you encounter the true king of beasts, the elephant. However, even its massive hulk would be easy to miss behind the leaves of summer. This explains why the prime time for game viewing is July to September, before spring rains bring on the lush growth. Elephants will eat every form of vegetable matter from fruit to nuts. This young bull is taking branches and rolling them through his mouth to peel off the tender bark. Africa holds all the land animal size records. From the largest, the elephant, we're face to hoof with the tallest, the giraffe. The impala helps put things in perspective. It's hard to believe an animal 3 times the height of a person can be inconspicuous. And imagine spending over half your life eating. Not necessarily an unpleasant thought, but a lot of work if you're a giraffe. Although they're bigger than females, males like this one spend less time eating. And how can you distinguish between the sexes without looking at the undercarriage? Not by the hooves, but actually by the horns. Appropriately enough, males have bald patches on top, while females have tufts of hair. Every day, old Leatherlips here will delicately prune up to 75 pounds of leaves and buds, the equivalent of about 400 human-sized servings of salad. Now that's a tall order. An even taller order, however, is the intensive management required to conserve the long list of animals on this enormous reserve. In a recently burned-over area, we spotted a cheetah family, one of the exact species this practice of burning is meant to benefit. Fire maintains the open habitat these elegant cats need. Although cheetah aren't endangered, they also aren't plentiful anywhere in Africa. Intent on playing, though, these youngsters are oblivious to everything. Only their mother keeps a careful watch. At this age, her cubs are vulnerable to attack by other predators. This isn't just fun and games, it's practice for the hunt. And practice makes perfect, especially when it's 2 against 1. 7 months old now, Mom will be watching out for them until they're about 2. Always in radio contact, our ranger receives word that a pride of lions have been spotted nearby. So we're soon bumping down a dry riverbed straight for them. Coordinated so neither wildlife nor people feel crowded, when we arrive, other vehicles leave. Ulusaba is dedicated to giving every guest an unforgettable experience while maintaining high environmental ethics. Being so close, so totally exposed to a protective lioness and her cubs is an unbelievable rush. It's impossible to exaggerate how extraordinarily different it is to see them in the wild like this. But we weren't the only ones who saw them. Suddenly, a troop of baboons went tearing off into the bush. Further on was an exciting find, the elusive leopard, and this one is on the prowl. Failure for the predator means success for the prey, but it's early yet, and the leopard is mainly a nocturnal hunter. By day, this beautiful creature usually lies well camouflaged in a dense thicket of undergrowth, which is why it is much sought after but rarely seen. The setting sun signals the bewitching hour in the Kruger National Park. This is the time when you must be back at camp there. But another luxury of being in the private reserve is staying to watch as this stealthy cat heads out alone to hunt in earnest. Our adventure continues on a night drive. Even if you never see a thing, just riding through the cool blackness of the African savanna and knowing what's out there is enough to give you chills. Our tracker spotted a blackback jackal, Africa's version of the wily coyote. And then we saw why he was hanging around. A cheetah was finishing off the last of a kill it must have made just before dark. These cats mainly hunt in early morning or late afternoon to avoid their nocturnal competitors like the leopard. While this scavenger waits impatiently before rushing in for leftovers, larger carnivores like the lion, that we can hear roaring at times, easily could rob the lightweight cheetah of a hard-won meal. In nature, the struggle for life and death continues long after dark. Ulusaba Game Reserve is a unique blend of refined elegance and raw wilderness, where they'll do just about anything to make your stay the experience of a lifetime. Fences no longer separate private reserves from Kruger National Park, and the animals can now move freely over an area the size of Massachusetts. This is one of the world's top 10 wildlife reserves and a leader in environmental management. Here, visitors are transported to an Africa as it was thousands of years ago. In recent times, elephants have become the most beloved among big game. Stories of their sensitivity touch us, but bulls can also be 5 tons of aggressive, unpredictable power. Coming towards us with ears spread was definitely a sign of bravado. We're alone now, and filming from the open hatchback of our vehicle gave the word exciting a whole new meaning. The elephant's sense of smell is better than its sight, so from a distance, this lone bull had obviously seen our vehicle as some kind of threat. With one last aggressive display, he left us inspired by his courage and dignity. Kruger is home to the largest variety of wildlife on the continent, possibly the world. You could explore the park for weeks without ever becoming bored. Impala topped the list of sightings, being the most common resident by far. They're also a mainstay on the diet of all the large predators. Although this group seems to be running and leaping in play rather than out of fear. Only males have horns, which are useful for asserting dominance even when it's not the mating season. At this time of year, impala are often seen in mixed herds, playing and cavorting. These young rams are practicing their prowess for future competitions. Like most antelope species, impala employ a grooming service called red-billed oxpeckers. And their relationship is no secret. It's a mutually beneficial one. The oxpecker delicately feeds on ticks and flies that infest the impala's hide and the more tender skin inside the ears. Ooh, imagine what that feels like. So impala are much more than just a casual perch for the red-billed oxpecker. They're also a roaming restaurant. Literally, a movable feast. Impala are one of a kind among Kruger's 22 different antelopes, and the buck's handsome markings make them stand out as one of the beauties. This beast, however, could only be considered attractive by a female ground hornbill. We spotted this turkey-sized bird with its eyes glued to the ground, stalking potential insect prey. The ground hornbill are one of over 500 species of birds that can be seen in the park. As September progressed, the savanna vegetation was still dry, But in some parts of the park, we started to see a flush of new life. In between, we looked up other colorful subjects on the bird list, and this one was a rare find. The saddle-bill stork is an endangered species, and there are only about 20 pairs in the park. Although males and females look alike, they're easy to tell apart. The male has dark eyes and is adorned with what look like yellow teardrop earrings. The female lacks those delicate wattles, but gazes out of yellow eyes. Standing nearly 5 feet, they're one of the tallest members of the stork family and can easily be found wading the shallows in search of unwary fish. And not always successfully, however. Among the many other inhabitants of Kruger's dams and rivers is one of Africa's true heavyweights, the hippopotamus. These tubby submariners spend their days almost completely submerged, sometimes sinking down to actually gallop along the bottom. All this activity helps keep channels open in the water, and other movements help maintain the lake's fertility. Well, today, hippos live peaceably in the waters they call home, but it wasn't always this way. An ancient Bushman legend tells the story. When time began and each animal was being assigned a place to live, the hippos were off eating and missed their call. In a panic, they went and pleaded with the crocodile. "We have very sensitive skin and no sweat glands. If we don't stay cool and wet, the searing sun will kill us in a couple of days. Please let us live in your waters." The crocodile's response was not exactly sympathetic. "Are you crazy? You'll eat all my fish." "No, no, no," the hippos responded excitedly. "No, we're herbivores, vegetarians. We don't eat fish. At night, we'll be out of here grazing on the grass." Well, this made the croc laugh. "Are you kidding? You must weigh 1.5 tons. I've seen those humongous canines. How do you expect me to believe you only eat plants?" Well, the hippos had to think about that, but then it gave them a great idea. "Here's what we'll do. Whenever we poop, we'll spread it everywhere so you can see that there aren't any fish bones in it. Are you ready for this? It'll give a whole new meaning to the expression when the poop hits the fan." Well, enough bathroom humor. Back in the bush, the wildlife interactions that unfolded were to be the most exciting we had seen. Here, what starts out as a greeting between zebra stallions turns a bit too challenging for one. Unconcerned, the warthog gets down to the business of grinding grass, a favorite meal. Over the years, his table manners make for some very calloused knees. These portly specimens are Africa's version of a horse. Their most striking feature is as individual as human fingerprints. No two zebra have the exact same pattern of stripes, heads or tails. And how's this for a family portrait? Relatives are often seen standing around together on the veldt, and also mixing with other non-threatening species. Veldt is a term used to describe the wide open spaces of the African landscape. A zebra rarely wander far from a waterhole, since they need to drink daily and regularly. This great dependency makes them very vulnerable if their closest source of water is being guarded by their worst enemy. In the park, lions account for more than 90% of zebra kills. All eyes were on the threatening menace. Timid and excitable at the best of times, these zebra now had good reason to be nervous. We were tense just watching the scene. The lions, on the other hand, seemed the picture of relaxed, carefree apathy. But they're the only ones relaxed. Looking at a group of zebra, lions see a blur of stripes that makes the herd look like a solid mass. This and the zebra's constant frenzied movements reduces the lion's chances of singling out a quarry. We were so absorbed on the drama in front of us, we almost missed the entrance of another species, a herd of Cape buffalo. These mighty herbivores must also drink daily, and their only two enemies are man and lions. Although these predators still seem uninterested, what followed was an awe-inspiring sight. This isn't mass confusion. No, heads above the herd, dominant bulls are on guard. If the lions make a move, these armored sentries are ready to protect the cows and calves with a wall of horns. How fortunate we are that this tremendous biological resource exists, and that every day visitors can come to watch one of the greatest shows on Earth. Now, history could have taken a different turn. By the end of the 1800s, scenes like this had all but disappeared from the Lowveld, and many species were in grave danger of vanishing forever. At that critical point, uncontrolled hunting finally made way for conservation, and in 1998, Kruger National Park celebrated its centenary. It is one of the oldest and biggest wildlife reserves in the world, truly a king among parks. The moving force behind the wildlife's depletion and salvation was gold. On the escarpment just west of Kruger, the Royal Hotel dates back to the 1870s, when South Africa's first gold rush began and the town of Pilgrim's Rest sprung up. Once a tent settlement of over 1,500 frantic gold seekers, today, this quiet little village is a national monument that lures visitors with its historic charm and preserves the humble beginnings of the largest gold mining industry in the world. Although the town may be frozen in time, the wheels of change are slowly turning for humanity. And as we traveled, it was encouraging to see that people of color are now able to be tourists in their own country. Unfortunately, the vast majority still barely survive, working at grossly underpaid jobs. This ugly reality exists in sharp contrast to the country's sheer visual beauty. This is the Blyde River Canyon, whose breathtaking vistas have been carved by the Blyde River after winding its way north out of Pilgrim's Rest. The 16-mile-long gorge represents a small link in the great escarpment that follows the eastern coast of the entire continent. Here, its depth and breadth can only be crossed at the canyon's narrow beginnings. Throughout the region, ribbons of waterfalls stir the emotions with their sight and sound. Short hikes through lush, temperate rainforest also lead to stunning views, where the earth itself tumbles more than 5,000 feet to the Lowveld. From such lofty perches, we were inspired and uplifted by nature's grandeur, making us wish we could capture the feeling along with the image. Before the dawn of life on Earth, the bedrock of this great escarpment was being formed, and still it resists the passage of time. As South Africa continues to recreate herself, it is hoped that the country's beautiful landscapes, bountiful wildlife, and botanical diversity will endure, not only to help secure the planet's health, but also the country's economic well-being. Reeling with anticipation of all there was yet to see, we were about to leave the Kruger area when we discovered a private reserve with an irresistible twist. In one way, it's similar to many new game parks. 25 years ago, the only thing we would have spotted here was cattle. Our ranger, Wendell Huff, explained that, fortunately, tourism dollars are encouraging a return to wild Africa. And now there's almost as much wildlife habitat owned privately as there is in the park system. Here they started a lion breeding program to help restock the growing number of private reserves. This lion cub was born as helpless as any kitten, and from the Land Rover, they both just seemed like big house cats. But this is where the different twist comes in.
Seeing wild lions right next to your car is definitely a thrill. However, if you want to experience them up close and personal, the place to go is Chikudu Game Lodge. Here they hand-rear orphaned animals and then successfully reintroduce them to the wild.
Regardless of whether you're a dedicated cat lover, this is definitely not an opportunity to pass up. And this was just the beginning of Chikudu's unique encounters. Some of the acquisitions for their restocking program stroll around the lodge like invited guests. This 9-year-old elephant was purchased from Kruger as a toddler and still treats people as part of the herd. So between the elephants and the lions and even rhino, early morning game walks are quite an amazing trip.
Come, Timbo. What's behind you? There's an elephant. Just stand still. The elephant's going to come past you. Come, Mickey.
Yes, there's no getting in the way of a 2.5-ton elephant with a purpose. Even an annoying lion cub at her heels hardly made her miss a step. She seemed to be heading straight towards Wendell, and then we discovered why. He had treats. Eager to embrace another new experience, Denice had to give this a try. With pockets full of alfalfa pellets, she started putting handfuls in the impatient elephant's mouth. But then this sensitive animal took Denice's hand with her trunk and gently placed it in her mouth. To Denice's surprise and overwhelming delight, this young elephant was using her hand like a soother until she was ready for more treats. To be an obvious source of comfort to such a wondrous creature is an unforgettable experience. Petting the affectionately called naked swine of the savannah has a totally different sweetness. Cutlet, as he was named by the staff, had been brought in as a tiny orphan from a nearby ranch, and now he enjoys a daily wallow in the mud like every warthog would. He really was quite endearing, all names aside. The sight of this bathing beauty was quite a contrast to the lilac-breasted roller, who seemed only mildly interested in the goings-on. Well, after the wallowing ritual, a good rubbing helps rid the warthog's skin of parasites. And until he's released as an adult, Cutlet is kept safe from the lion cubs who would literally have him for dinner. Conflict of another sort develops when a rhino comes in contact with the bull elephant. Wendell explained.
The elephant weighs 3 tons, whereas the rhino weighs about 2.5 tons. So they have an equitable weight. And the problem with that is he can't push the rhino around. So he will use other means. He will try and irritate the rhino by touching his ear and touching his horns. He will try and throw sticks at him, that type of thing to get him to move. What he's trying to do is to get the rhino out of his territory. Now you might see with a smaller rhino that he will be able to do that. He might shove them out of the way and get them to run away.
But in this case, the planet's 2 largest land mammals are well-matched opponents. South Africa's private reserves and public parks are cooperative partners in the country's conservation success. Here, 12,000 acres of degraded land has been transformed back to natural habitat. The white rhinos were the first animals bought in the restocking process. So to honor these beginnings, they named the reserve Chikudu, the Sotho people's word for this magnificent beast, brought back from the brink of extinction. Today, the experiences offered here allow guests to feel they've literally touched the spirit of South Africa. From its northeastern reaches, our circle of the country continues south for some quiet excitement in a Mkuzi game hide and some peak experiences in the Drakensberg. It's here in the province of KwaZulu-Natal that the Drakensberg rises from the foothills and soars to its most spectacular heights. This section of the Great Escarpment is protected in a 60-mile-long string of parks and reserves, each one offering unique views and experiences. Up until the late 1800s, the grassy plateau of what is now Giant's Castle had been home to the San hunter-gatherers. For thousands of years, these nomadic people lived in harmony with nature, dependent on the land for all their needs and taking no more than they required to survive. Well, today, we can only imagine the richness of their lives through the priceless works of art left behind on the walls of their long-deserted sandstone shelters. Far from being just mural decoration, the paintings speak of hope, power, and the deepest religious sentiments of the San people. The San believed that in a trance state, they could harness the potency of an animal and be transformed into it. In their culture, the most powerful creature was the eland. Besides being of great value for food and ritual, these antelope were a source point through which shaman could enter the spirit world and do battle on behalf of their people. Unfortunately, the power of the eland could not save the Bushmen, as the Europeans call them. Their traditional life clashed with the settler's pastoral existence, and the hunter literally became the hunted, until practically wiped out. In the Drakensberg, all that remains of the San people is their remarkable rock art. On one of its remote mountainsides, Giant's Castle has set up a unique eating establishment in an effort to preserve one of the country's endangered species. The only thing on the menu at the Vulture restaurant are bones. Bones put out to lure the rare lammerhair, or bearded vulture, away from the nearby farms where they become the unintended victims of poisoned meat. But like all bird feeders, it also benefits enthusiastic bird watchers and photographers. The beautifully situated blind comes complete with one-way glass and ports for camera lenses. We were no sooner inside when we caught a glimpse of our most coveted customer, effortlessly riding the wind. And then it was gone. But when we looked back at the feeding stations, a white-necked raven was dropping in to distract us. This common resident will eat almost anything, but has a particular liking for meat. Certainly wasn't shy about it either. But there are others, handsome hawks like the jackal buzzard, also took advantage of the free entrees. We were wishing our bird feeder at home attracted such impressive customers. It seemed the restaurant was becoming too crowded, so the raven decided on takeout. Once again, the Lammerheier tantalized us with a fleeting view. While the territorial lanner falcon called intense vocal discouragement to the circling vulture, we were inside silently screaming our encouragement for this rare bird to land. We won. But victory was brief. After waiting all day, the magnificent bearded vulture grabbed a bone and left. Undaunted and determined, we headed to another location for one more chance to admire this spectacular bird. Perched near the top of the escarpment at 7,600 feet, Vitchi's Hook Mountain Resort is the highest lodge in the country. But besides viewing the beautiful scenery, guests can eat breakfast in their restaurant while an endangered species dines a short distance away. This is the experience we were hoping for. In addition to the vultures, some of the same crowd gathered for this feast. There was also a new guest. However, it had no interest in the free food. The glossy ibis was busy stalking its own insect meal. In the Lammerheier's search for carrion and bones, it spends about 90% of the daylight hours performing an aerial survey, sometimes covering a few hundred miles a day. Well, if they should find a bone that's too big to swallow, they repeatedly drop it from great heights until it breaks and the problem is solved. In contrast to the relatively common glossy ibis, there are only 200 pair of Lammerheier or bearded vultures left in the country. Hopefully, the Drakensberg will always be a sanctuary where they will forever soar on the mountain thermals. Nearby, the amphitheater is one of the most scenic locations on the necklace of parks in the Drakensberg. Here at Royal Natal National Park, horseback riding is a popular way of exploring the countryside. This is about as relaxing as it looks, but if you want the ultimate experience in these mountains, you need to stop at the Cathedral Peak Hotel. Here, the 9-hole course, soon to be expanded to 18, is the most scenic in South Africa. But for those of you with more romantic tendencies, you can come here to renew your vows in the chapel in the peaks. Now for that thrill I was talking about, one of the things that makes this resort so unique is its own helicopter service, Drak Air. They'll give you the ride of a lifetime. Our skilled pilot, Everett DeVette, kept checking on my safety as I leaned out the door. And I must admit, I just kept smiling all the way to the top. And so did Denice. Well, if the weather's good, you might land for a few moments to have a more steady look around, but the clouds have a quick way of closing in. Still, the Zulu name for this majestic range means barrier of spears. The Afrikaner people gave it the name it's known by today, Drakensberg, Mountains of the Dragon. Between its superb pictograph collection, endangered species, and spectacular wilderness, the Natal Drakensberg is a prime candidate as both a cultural and natural world heritage site. Seeing it from here, it was obvious to us that what they were really trying to protect was just a little bit of heaven on earth. From the country's crowning heights, we have descended into the rolling hills of a region known as Zululand. We're here to visit Mkuzi, a unique game reserve where visitors view wild Africa mainly by parking their cars rather than driving them. And it all begins with an early morning walk down a long corridor that keeps you safe and hidden.
One of the most relaxing and rewarding ways to see wildlife is by sitting in a blind and waiting for them to come to you. But it takes a little patience.
A little patience, perhaps, and the first shy visitor who ventured from the safety of cover was a young male Nyala. His soft stripes do little to conceal him outside of the forest's filtered light. What draws feathered and furred alike is the obvious: water. These small pans or shallow ponds are the only permanent water available to them during the dry winters. But with or without it, it's actually something of a miracle to see these creatures here at all. Earlier this century, tens of thousands of wild animals were slaughtered in a futile effort to eliminate the deadly tsetse fly. Since then, the dreaded insect has been wiped out, and fortunately, wildlife populations have made a remarkable recovery. Today, their main threat is the same one facing wildlife all over the world. Parks are becoming fragile islands in a sea of development and overpopulation. Besides species like the wildebeest, who come to the pan just for a drink, there are others who stay and decorate the overhanging trees with their intricate nests. The architects are another member of the weaver bird family, spotted-back weavers. And it's the colorful males who painstakingly create these complicated nests with their stubby little bills. One long strip of palm frond at a time. When the job is done, they enthusiastically advertise their newly woven nurseries to every female in the area. Well, this female seems entirely unimpressed with the builder or his creation. But regardless of her response, competition is fierce among the males. These two are obviously having a serious territorial dispute over some prime real estate. Well, this is the beauty of sitting in a Mkuzi hide. One literally has a window on the natural world, eavesdropping on its innermost secrets, yet disturbing none of it.
Back on the road again, speed limits in South Africa's game parks are only about 20 to 30 miles or 30 to 50 kilometers an hour, and local residents always have the right-of-way. While some of these fellow travelers are easy to spot, others are a bit more difficult, and none of them can be rushed.
Monitor lizards are among the oldest living reptiles in the world. Perhaps when the human species has been around 130 million years, we won't be in such a hurry either. On the other hand, dung beetles must work at a feverish pace, because if it weren't for them, we'd all be up to our eyeballs in you-know-what. Individually, it may not seem like a problem, but multiply this by vast herds of herbivores and things would start piling up. If it weren't for the sanitation crew, who each rake together a piece of the heap and roll the load along backwards to a recycling site. As nature's official pooper scoopers, dung beetles not only keep the savanna clean, but also fertilize the soil, by burying around a half a ton of the stuff per acre per year. It's not an altruistic exercise on the beetles' part. The pair, in this case, will peacefully devour the dung or leave it as room and board for their offspring. Leftovers will return nutrients to the soil. Unfortunately, these invaluable little creatures are often crushed by people driving unaware through the parks. But with a little care, they could avoid destroying this vital link in one of nature's cycles. Let's leave Umkuzi now, and the distinctive acacia tree of much of wild Africa, and head to a more tame but also beautiful part of the country, like the garden route, Swartberg Pass, and first Graf Reinet. This is the Karoo, which covers almost a third of South Africa's total area, and the quintessential Karoo town is Graf Reinet. As the fourth oldest city in South Africa, it has over 200 national monuments, more than any other place in the country. Here are just a few, starting with the Dutch Reformed Church, built in 1886, one of the most imposing churches in South Africa. The former Graf Reinet College, built in 1903, now housing the Police Academy. The Town Hall, built in 1902, and named to commemorate the great and glorious reign of Queen Victoria. The original seat of local government, or Droste, is at the end of a stretch of court and is today restored to its pristine elegance as the Droste Hotel. In addition to its rich agricultural heritage, Graf Reinet is also one of only 2 towns in the world situated in the heart of a nature reserve. Looking out at the Valley of Desolation beyond the city, the Karoo Nature Reserve protects 40,000 acres of this fascinating landscape. From the central plateau of the Great Karoo, we head further west to the spectacular Swartberg Pass, which takes us into the Klein or Little Karoo. This 18-mile-long engineering miracle was built 150 years ago. And today, it is still an awesome drive along breathtaking switchbacks and sheer drops. The road meanders through a fantastic geology of twisted sedimentary layers as it cuts its way through the mountains. Eventually, it leads us out into a fertile valley in the feather capital of the world, Oudtshoorn. The feather capital of the world is the ostrich capital of the world, and ostrich grazed all around us, as common as cattle in this country. Most of us know the male for his elegant plumage, but he's also a blushing beau when it's time to court the females. Still, there's more to this than meets the eye.
Ostriches lay the largest egg of any bird in the world. Shell and all, this baby weighs over 2 pounds or more than a kilogram, and it contains the equivalent of 24 chicken eggs. Not only that, they're so strong you can actually stand on them.
We also discovered that if you want to be kissed by an ostrich, and who doesn't, it's not only what you're offering that entices her, but the look in your eye that finally wins her over.
Okay, Linda, good girl.
This is the Kango Ostrich Farm, a great day trip for school groups, though hand-feeding birds taller than you are can be a little intimidating. But there are ways of doing it that can get you totally involved and are more fun than frightening. At least Denice thought so. Talk about fun. Riding the ostrich was the highlight of the day for these school kids. The jockey sure made it look easy. So much so that Denice decided to give it a try.
So you got a thin part in the wing there.
Yes.
Tight grip to that wing there.
Grip, yes.
It's another thin part. So just sit tight, lean back, grab your legs, and off we go. Balance there.
Well, it wasn't easy, she said. You have to hang on for dear life, but definitely a once-in-a-lifetime experience. If that wasn't enough for one day, just down the road is the Kango Wildlife Ranch.
I'm sure you've heard that cheetah are the fastest land mammal on Earth. But did you know that it's the only wild cat that purrs?
This was much more relaxing for both of them. And I must admit, if she did that to me, I'd probably purr too. Although cheetah are found throughout the parklands of Africa, they are not plentiful, and many believe that breeding in captivity for release in the reserves is an important safety measure. When young, the kits are covered in a downy fur that makes for an even more huggable snuggle buddy, and certainly one that Denice could not pass up. She likes to call it a warm, fuzzy fix, and it doesn't get any better than this. Look at that face. Just look at that face. So from the ultimate in speed and grace, we move on to the ultimate in steam and haste. No, not the Chattanooga choo-choo, but the Utaniqua choo-choo, the only steam train operating on a daily basis in South Africa. When this line was finished in 1928, it was regarded as the most expensive piece of clickety-clack in the world. Today it is billed as one of the most beautiful. Heading due south from Oudtshoorn, the Utaniqua choo-choo travels from George to Knysna, 42 miles along South Africa's famous garden route. In order to save money, they built this bridge for trains and cars. And although you have to take turns, it's obvious who goes first. This is one place where you don't want to play chicken. Three very pleasant hours later, we left behind the fields, forests, and lakelands of the garden route, and we're coming into the coastal town of Knysna. Today, the Utaniqua choo-choo is a train for tourists, so if you'd like a glimpse of the past and the sounds of steam, it's well worth the trip. Knysna is the end of the line, and here the waters of the Indian Ocean channel between the headlands into a wide lagoon basin. This is a great place for a hike, at the edge of the Indian Ocean. Here in Neisner, we found unique accommodation, Lightly's Aqua Chalet. Don't you just love that word? It's just a houseboat, but they call it an aqua chalet. For Denice and I, this would be a mini vacation on South Africa's only natural lake, actually an estuary fed by river and sea. And we savored the moment. This was the view from our bed at dawn, but reluctantly we had to weigh anchor and get back to work. It's a rough life, but there were compensations. For now, we're traveling to South Africa's crown jewel, the city of Cape Town. This is where the nation began, and we'll explore it from the air, the sea, and round the Cape of Good Hope. But first, we'll head to the winelands. Growing wheat and raising livestock was the primary aim of the Cape's first Dutch settlers. Planting vineyards was almost an afterthought. Today, South Africa's flourishing wine industry is world-renowned. Along the many wine routes, gracious estates are set in verdant valleys. Boschendal is one of the most beautiful. The elegant mansion lines of its 17th century architecture mirror the mountain backdrop. Since the Dutch had almost no wine tradition, it was only after the French Huguenots settled here in the late 1600s that the industry began to thrive. KWV is now one of the largest wineries in the world, producing more than 100 different wines and brandies. Their cathedral cellar with its barrel-vaulted ceiling is one of the most impressive anywhere. Carvings on the huge red wine casks depict highlights from the Cape's wine-making history. This is the Huguenot Memorial, which honors the invaluable contribution these persecuted Protestants made to their adopted nation and its wine industry, symbolizing tranquility and spiritual peace after great strife. Today, it seems to represent a wish for all the country's people. From the winelands, you can be at a Cape Town beach within an hour, and Camps Bay is one of the most beautiful in the world. Surfing conditions are also ideal for those willing to brave the frigid waters. The Benguela Current, surging up the coast, begins among the icebergs of Antarctica. But humans aren't the only ones catching a wave. This cold water makes the southwestern coast ideal for an animal which at first might seem out of place in a Mediterranean climate.
These tuxedo-clad seabirds are named for the donkey-like braying sound they make. They're called jackass penguins, and they're only found on the coasts of Africa.
They really do sound like a jackass braying, don't they? And to beat the heat, the penguins dig underground nests in which to raise their young. Most couples also do their courting and sparking during the winter when temperatures are cooler. The first nests here at Boulders Beach were dug in 1985, and since then the population has grown to over 1,000. But their survival continues to be threatened by coastal development. Most breeding sites are off limits, but this one has controlled access, and you can see up close what was once South Africa's most abundant seabird. Today, their future is up to all of us, and this should include a resolve to protect another coastal visitor that has been to the edge of extinction: the southern right whale. Southern right whales visit the tip of the continent between June and September and grace the waters with their exuberant behavior. Once seen as only the right whale to hunt, today we look at these gentle giants with a sense of wonder. While only 4,000 to 6,000 of these whales swim the African seas, twice that many Cape gannets gather to nest at Lambert's Bay, 2.5 hours north of Cape Town. One of only 6 Cape gannet sites worldwide, this colony is a mass of courting chaos, where pairs greet each other in triumphant reunion. As you know, there is a rhythm in nature and a rhythm in music, and sometimes they seem to coincide. Even the cormorants are picking up the beat. For us, it was an awesome sight. Thousands of birds intent on leaving something of themselves to inherit the wind. And now, from sea level to mountaintop, a breathtaking journey aboard Cape Town's most popular tourist attraction. They call it the Rotair. As you ride to the top, the floor inside rotates, giving you a constantly changing view. The top of Table Mountain, over 3,000 feet above Cape Town. Surely this has to be one of the world's greatest picnic spots. And if the weather is just right, the cloud bank begins to cover the mountain with what they call the tablecloth. But perhaps the best way to experience Cape Town is by helicopter. Home to 2.5 million people, nestled in the bowl of Table Mountain, Cape Town is considered one of the most beautiful cities in the world. And there are other great landmarks above the city, the long sweep of Signal Hill, and the distinctive peak of Lion's Head. Moving southwest, we come to the 12 Apostles, a chain of buttresses running at right angles to Table Mountain. I think this is the most exciting way to experience the Cape Town area. But if heights make you nervous, come down to the sea again. To relive some of Cape Town's early years, try sailing the Spirit of Victoria on her famous Sunset Champagne cruise. There's the wind in your sails, the sunset on your face, and champagne in your glass. It was a lasting memory, not only of the sea, but of a city that's as beautiful by night as it is by day. We could end our journey here, but there's still more. The king protea is South Africa's national flower. Proteas are one of many species in the Cape Floral Kingdom. Because so many of the species along the southwest edge of the continent are found nowhere else in the world, it has earned international recognition as one of the world's 6 floral kingdoms. One great place to experience this floral kingdom is here at Cape Point, and the unique tramway makes it easy. Yes, there is some hiking if you're up for it, and at the top, you suddenly realize you are standing at the southern edge of Africa, above the Cape of Good Hope. From here, you look south towards Antarctica and across waters that have challenged the best of mariners. Today, there are more casual sailors than commercial ships, and on a calm day, they can safely say they've rounded the Cape. The early mariners called it many things: the fairest Cape, the Cape of Storms, and the Cape of Good Hope. These descriptions record their feelings on rounding Cape Point, on reaching the end of their journey. In some ways, this reflects the history of South Africa, fairest when the first people lived here, stormy with the history of European oppression, and today it is filled with good hope. Hope that South Africa can be an example to the rest of the continent, an example to the world.
Kosi sigeleli Afrika, kosi sigeleli Afrika, malupanga Yesu tumbalwayo, izwa imitandazo yetu kosi sigelela hatina bantwana bakho, kosi sigeleli Afrika, malupanga Yesu tumbalwayo, izwa imitandazo yetu kosi sigelela hatina lusapolwayo, kosi sigeleli Afrika, malupanga Yesu tumbalwayo, izwa imitandazo yetu kosi sigelela hatina lusapolwayo, murena bulunga sichaba sa Yesu, upelise ditwali matwenyewo, murena bulunga sichaba sa